think manual screen printing, that feels nothing but hobby to me at this point. As far as doing manual screen printing, you really can't even argue quality.
Squeegee Ink Podcast Season 2. This podcast is sponsored by Blind Maggot, Magna Colours, Screenprint World, Target Transfers, and Adobe Creative Suite.
Hello, my name is Cole. I run Shirt Agency. Shirt Agency I started back in 2012. We're a shop in Southern California. And then we also host a podcast, which is Building Your T-Shirt Empire. And I've been doing that on and off for quite a long time. And then we just kind of relaunched it this summer so that now it's a weekly content.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So what's the kind of angle with the podcast? Are you just trying to like pass on your knowledge to the next generation? Are you who are the listeners of the podcast, do you reckon?
For the most part, the listeners, I think, are people that are probably having some sort of level of print shop. Most likely they have, even if it is like a garage-based print shop, they most likely are trying to make money with screen printing, because we don't really do like, how-to content. For the most part. We do more like running a business content that's just focused on the industry. But I've had people walk up to me that are actually like way more successful than I am, just because they like the interviews, because I try to only interview people that are like way beyond whatever I can offer, because I know they have so much more knowledge than like just me.
Yeah. So lowly little me wouldn't get on because I'm much smaller than you. But anyway, it's that Kanye West lyric,
it's all relative. Like, it doesn't matter. There's always somebody who's out of control. And like, some of the people I've talked to are so massive that it's like you can't even imagine having their life. Like, one of them was talking about how he was late for a meeting, and it was like, how are you going to get across LA? It's going to take like 2 hours. And his response was like, oh, we're going to get in the helicopter. What are you talking about? Like, he was so dismissive. And it was like, you take helicopters to meetings? Like, it was crazy.
I thought it was going to be fancy. I thought you were just going to say, I get on the back of a motorbike or something. But no, helicopter's serious.
Helicopter.
Serious money. Well, if you're that important, I've never been that important for anything.
You could be. It's amazing how this industry works. One of the other guys I know, he was basically my size the entire time I knew him. We would just like hang out, and he's pretty close to my shop. So we were like buddies besides just knowing each other. And he, in the span of 2 years, went from maybe a little over $1 million in sales gross to last year he did 15 million. And it was a 2-year turnaround.
Yeah.
So just like, some people just pop off like crazy. Like, also like Rum, who runs Supercolor now. The first time he ever interacted with me was him being like, oh, hey, do you want to buy some transfers? And I was like, I don't like transfers. And then fast forward 3-4 years, and he's one of the biggest like print shop companies in the world. And that was just him deciding one day to start selling transfers. And like, you can really blow up if you offer something that's a differentiator.
Yeah. I've seen you give little snippets of advice, the clips where you say things like, do or don't you need like input finance wise, or should you just rough it out, see how you get on doing it on your own and building up slowly? Like, is this kind of scale that you're talking about with your friend going from 1 to 15 mil a year or something, is that with an input of outsider investment and finance, or was it natural?
I mean, I don't think he 1,000% bootstrapped it, but he didn't get investors. So he might have taken what some people would be considered terrifying, like loans, but he didn't do it with investors. So him and the partners that he's done it with are still 100% owners.
Yeah.
I know they paid pretty much all of that back too, because on 15 million, it's funny how the margins work in our game, but after all his overhead, they cleared, after paying themselves a salary, they cleared like 700,000.
Nice.
And so then they were trying to spend all of that because they didn't want to pay taxes. So they were using the 700 grand to expand instead of using it to, just pocket.
Yeah, no, that's clever. Would you ever consider, like, how do you see your own growth going? Would you get outside investment at this size? Are you happy with your scale at the moment?
I feel like the outside investment, there's this weird thing that happens with the investors in this space is you're either completely on fire and making a ton of money. So the idea of even getting an investor just doesn't make sense. If you're someone like Culture Studio, why would Culture Studio want money? Because Culture Studio is growing so rapidly on their own. Why would they want money? It would just mean they lose, power over their own stuff. But then there's other people who basically have absolutely nothing to show, but they have like a software idea or they have a platform idea. Like if you go back to what Teespring did, that was 100% bouncing out of, investment money. Same with like Printful and Printify and stuff. Those were actually software teams that saw an opportunity in the space and decided they were going to do a better like user-facing system. And then they got outside investment with essentially no industry knowledge and then hired the people they needed for the industry knowledge. Yeah. If you're in the middle and you have a shop that's mid-size and local, I don't know what an investor wants to do with it. You kind of have to sell a dream. You either have to have so much money that they want a part of your profits for eternity, or you have to sell a dream and say, hey, we're going to do $100 million in sales. So now you're going to invest in this dream.
Yeah. That Printful company is all over me at the moment. I think their marketing department has gone into overdrive, like contacting all the studios and being like, are you sure you don't need us? Are you sure? And I'm like, leave me alone.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see how Printful wants to partner with like a studio. It is true, though, like if you just put up designs that people like and you have an audience, their user interface is great. I know that they've had issues with turnaround time, but that's basically because their demand is so high. So like, it'll be interesting to see how DTF changes like Printful, because I think they're on an army of Corneets or something similar. So it'll be interesting to see as more people give up on DTG, like what some of those companies will shift over to.
Yeah. Do you see that happening? Like people are just giving up on DTG, and like, why wouldn't they? Or are you seeing anyone buy DTG at the moment?
If you have a $500,000 Corneet, you're not going to give up on it. But if you're talking about like a 20,000, like when we bought our Epsons, they were basically 20 grand by the time you paid tax. And then you start paying them off over however long, because you get like $1,000 a month payment plan on it instead of paying in cash. And you can be 2-3 years in and you feel like you just paid it off, and yet the technology is just gone. And so I don't know going forward how many people are going to want to buy new DTG. When I was just at Graphics Pro, they had a bunch of information about how the Epson DTG can also make you DTF. Yes. And I was like, okay, but I could just buy DTF for literally cheaper. And then on top of it, if I buy an Epson DTG, now I'm like manually shaking adhesive as opposed to the built-in shakers and stuff from people like Omniprint who are just 100% selling DTF. So yeah, it's interesting. And then also, like, even for us, we can make DTF transfers in-house, and the ability to just dump someone's art into a supercolor form and just have it arrive 2 days later and have no staff worry about it and have them worry about things that matter more. It's really tempting. Like, I just ordered 90 transfers from Supercolor because the idea of like getting it going in-house just sounded like a bigger waste of time. So I don't know, like as those transfer companies get really, really efficient, it's more and more tempting to just not even do your own printing.
I know. This is a question that I asked another studio as well, but they were talking about they still wanted to keep the craft of screen printing, but also it's profitable because of the numbers that they're at. So say if someone went in, they maybe had like a fire or something, someone stripped out all your equipment, but then you got your insurance money back. What would you be spending it on the same equipment again, or would you go sod it, let's just do some transfers and let's get an army of heat presses in here, like for money wise?
If I was sodding it, let's see, I would probably, if I'm going to get any space at all, it's going to be a place with a lot of traffic and probably really small. So like 800 or 1,000 square feet near like a Target something with a ton of traffic, get a bunch of great signage, and then I would send all of my work to a legit large contract screen printing shop that I know I can trust. Like I've got some guys that are around. I'm in Southern California, so like the whole industry's around me. But I would send large orders to them and then just be okay with the fact that I'm only getting like 15%, because I wouldn't have any overhead. I wouldn't have payroll. I wouldn't have electricity problems. Like I would just be like, okay, if I sell this for $13 a shirt, I'm going to pocket $2 a shirt, and that's just fine. And then for things that are smaller, I would probably just go like 100% super color. And the only equipment in the building at all is like heat presses.
Yeah.
Maybe like one of those carousel heat presses. That way you could do like,
I've seen those. They're insane. They with the full pattern.
You could do like 200 heat presses and not necessarily farm out the job. But I mean, it's the only way we really make money with screen printing is volume. Like that's why I especially think manual screen printing, that feels nothing but hobby to me at this point. That and live printing, like we've done well with live printing, but as far as doing manual screen printing, you really can't even argue quality. Like maybe you'll get a few shirts that look better than a DTF, but if you're going to do 80 shirts manually, are you really that great of a manual screen printer that the quality's, always perfect hitting them manually? I just don't know if that's true anymore.
Okay. But would you, in your premises, would you have like a little retail bit at the front as well? Would you kind of be, because then you get the full markup on the shirt, like you're not just, selling it direct. Yeah. Then you're getting real margins.
Sense. I've never done a retail like thing. Like we've never had an in-house brand or whatever. It would be cool. If you know Rockford Art Deli, have you ever seen them?
Yeah, they're serious.
They do an amazing job of selling retail. And it's funny because if you talk to him, Jared will tell you like, we had a ton of orders. We did 600 shirts. And in our world of autos, 600 shirts is like maybe something we do in the morning. But to him, 600 shirts at $25-$30 a shirt, like he's golden. So it's just a different world. And the biggest thing that I've never thought I was good at for that is you have to build an audience, and the audience has to think you're cool forever. Because we've had customers that blew up where they did $3 million in sales or whatever, and 2-3 years later, like they're not cool, and they just don't get the same amount of sales. So I've always kind of been afraid of that, where like your business is popularity.
Do you think though, I've seen American brands actually like double down on their area codes and sell that as the brand, like kind of Portland, I think it's Portlander, and all they do is like peas and everything's Portland, and they've got like 8 shops. And so that type of thing I feel really sells in America, but retail aspect doesn't particularly appeal. But okay,
I mean, if you're in a cool place that has like the right vibe, it works. You're not going to do it in Bakersfield, but you're going to do it in like Austin and Portland, and in Orange County we do a brand that's called Newport, because people who live in Newport are really proud of where they live. And I know that like whatchamacallit, this one shop in Manhattan Beach, they're doing really well with like Manhattan Beach merch, because there's a tourist element to it, and then also like the locals think it's cool to represent their own city. So there's definitely an opportunity there. I just haven't done it. I always liked the idea of being like, I'd rather have 30 people trying to be cool than me try to be cool to everyone.
So you're defeating them.
Like my customers feel like their number one job is being cool and popular, and then they just have to know that I won't screw them over. That's all they need out of me. They don't need me to be cool.
I see what you mean. So you're just like spreading the risk basically, so that you can't just go under when your popularity drifts over. And we've had people that kill it. Like we have this one YouTuber that does like 2 million views every single video, but on 2 million views he'll sell like 900 items. And so for us, he's like a day's worth of work for us to knock it out.
But for him, like all of his revenue is the fact that he's getting views on YouTube, and it's so fickle to, you just like piss off the crowd, and your business is a disaster, and you're always trying to give your opinion because that's why you are famous. But then your opinion can definitely bite you in the ass. So it's like, it's scary.
Yeah. People can literally clip it, take it out of context and show it.
Right.
And then you're like, oh God, did I say that? That's not what I meant when you guys are responding like that. Yeah.
Or you can just deserve it. Like maybe you are a jackass, and then you put the video out proving that you're a jackass. So like, it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things like, I've never understood how people survive off popularity, because it just seems so like fickle to me. It's scary.
Yeah, there is this one video, and I feel like you're taking the piss. I know you're taking the piss, but I'm trying to figure out if you're taking the piss out of one of these screen print shops. But I've gone completely blank on what the screen print shop is called, because I blocked them, and now I can't remember the name. Do you know how like they do? They're a normal print studio, and it's like, oh, rush order tees.
Oh, okay. What did I say about them?
No, did you do an Instagram post and then like you're putting ink in a pot, but you're purposely doing it really bad, like getting all over your hands? And I was watching it, and I was like, I was stressing out watching it. Is that like a piss take of rush order tees, or were you just, I don't know, what were you doing on that?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if we were blatantly making fun of them, but I think it was inspired. Like if you watch their TikToks. It's funny because they're so huge, right? Like they're huge, and they're doing everything on autos. And so the fact that all their TikToks are like these like manual arts and craft videos, because that's what works, is, I guess that's kind of what the reference was. Yeah. Where it's like doing things just really messy and one off, and like you could never mass manufacture it, but that's what they post all the time. Yeah. But whatever, it works. They get a ton of views on some of those.
Yeah. So is TikTok something you've ventured into? Because I've only ever followed you on Instagram. But
we tried it, and I don't know. I felt like I was trying really hard to do stupid things, and nobody was like calling and placing a real order because of it. So like I got more views than before because I was trying, but I don't know. I think I'm old, and I also think that like there's so many people who do a really good job with content because all they do all day is content, that me just kind of like wasting 45 minutes being cute, I don't know if it really works. Yeah. And I'd much rather get a call from one marketing company that thinks that I can do an event than have 10,000 teenagers think it's really funny, because it just one shot. The marketing company will be way easier to manage.
Yeah. So when you're putting out the marketing, who are your ideal customers that you want to be loading up your books with? Who are you actually like targeting it to?
I mean, so a lot of our content, I guess, is kind of just for screen printers. So in some ways that's not very good for getting clients. But then like when I run ads, I'll normally buy ads that are targeted at like marketing audiences, business decision makers. Like we just did Porto's Bakery, which I don't know if you've heard of them, but in like the Southwest of America, it's very, very popular, like their bakery. And so we did 2,700 items for them. And the entire conversation for the sale was a text message and then an email with a spreadsheet. And then they just paid within like 2-3 hours. Like they didn't even want to come in. They didn't care. It was just about trust. And so those are the clients I want. Like I want a client that it's a corporate decision. They just need it done properly. They're not going to like nickel and dime over price. It's just purely like, will you not screw us over? And once they believe that, then they're an amazing client. It's just so much easier than like having customers come in and wanting to feel fabric because they're ordering 35 shirts. Like that's just, it takes so much time. And normally those types of smaller orders, they just don't know what they want. So they ask questions the whole time. And it's you put so much effort into something that doesn't pay very well. Yeah.
How do you detract those customers coming though? Because you don't want to get a reputation for putting them away, but do you have opportunity for people to just walk into your place, or are you quite?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a commercial environment, so like you're not gonna walk up to us after Target. And like I try to have our website be relatively clear about the fact that like we service businesses and we're doing volume printing.
Mm.
Like we're not advertising, the soccer mom special. And so we probably don't get that many of those people naturally because so many people market to them already, like custom ink and stuff. That's their whole bread and butter is like every small order on the planet, custom ink wants it.
Mm.
And then when we do get them, basically we just price accordingly. So if somebody's getting 25 shirts on a nice blank, they might pay $18 or $19 a shirt. So it's almost retail.
Mm.
And then if we are going to do it, like it's worth the time to do it. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like we have to deal with, whether or not we can really like dedicate the staff's time to it.
Definitely. And so can I ask about staff? Because I feel like staffing is one of the biggest challenges from going from like being the owner operator to actually like getting on and working on the business. How have you found retaining staff? Because like how much do you ever feel like, oh, I'm training this person up, but then they could leave? How do you feel about like any like mistakes that you've done with staff and how you would go about hiring your first members of staff now?
So as far as staff, like basically we have a ton of turnover. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people when I first hear like their issues with hiring their first few hires. They feel like they want to be friends. They feel like they want to be liked as a boss. And then on top of it, they give infinite chances because it's like, oh, maybe it's my fault. It's not working out. But then when you look at big shops, like the owner may have never met multiple staff members. There's simply just tasks that have to be completed. When they hire, it's do you know this, yes or no, period. It's not like, oh, I'll train you for 4 months. And then they have like almost no forgiveness if somebody does something that's like unacceptable. So if they just become flaky or if they have like no interest in having like high quality, those big shops just get rid of them within 2-3 days. And then the small shops, I'll hear about how like their high school buddy is still in the shop and shows up 14 hours a week and is unreliable and did jobs that messed them up for like thousands of dollars in losses. But like, oh, we're working on it. And it's like, it's just not how any big shop runs. They just do not work on it. They either have an employee doing a good job and doing their tasks, or they have that person replaced. So like I do have people that have been with us for 8 years. I think the longest one is 8 years, and we've only been open 10. So like some people stick around for a long time, and like we do like each other, but we also have like this expectation that like I will always be paying them on time and they will always be showing up on time. And it's not this thing where we're like, I'm trying to become their friend. Which I think is what happens in a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, no, that sounds really legitimate. So like what kind of procedures do you put in place? Because you're saying like when it becomes unacceptable, do you have, I don't know, like monthly meetings on their work? Do they have targets that they have to hit? What kind of measures are you using to like gauge whether that's a good person if you're not working alongside them?
Well, I mean, we're pretty small, so like I do feel like I am working alongside them most of the time. But we basically have a schedule of what we expect each person to complete each day. So like the art person has all of their list of mock-ups, all of their list of screens they need to create. And they can just keep moving everything forward down the line in the schedule. And the biggest red flag for me is like, you didn't complete the tasks we expected you to complete. And if we're completely slammed, then that's not held against them. But if it's a completely normal day and they were only making, like, let's say they were only making 31 screens and their full-time job is screens, and at the end of the day, there's 12 screens not done, like there's zero reason that there's an excuse other than they just didn't work all day. Like they sort of did things and they were slow and they were lazy, because especially with like our CTS, like knocking out like 31 screens in a day, like I could probably do it in 3 hours myself. So the idea of like that kind of situation is just unacceptable. And so there is like those obvious tells of like one person will not keep up with the schedule, and then everyone else normally is telling me that someone's a problem before I even decide to address it. Because if your screens aren't ready, now the screen printer is all of a sudden in a rush, and the screen printer's like, why am I getting screwed over by this person being lazy? So they tattle quite a bit.
They just come in and tell you about it. Yeah, fair enough. But do you think you, having built the company from the ground up, means that you have done every single one of those tasks? Like you have done artworking.
Oh yeah.
You've done all the roles, so you understand and you can pinpoint when they're not doing a good job. Like even with artworking, did you ever like ship that out, or
I can do I can do everything in the business. And like that's probably why we have a few less staff members than other shops sometimes, is and maybe there's a fault level to it too, because if I had people that were better than me at certain things, maybe that would be good for us. But I end up covering for things. So like if someone calls out sick, I don't feel like I need multiple people in the art department. I just like show up an hour early.
All right. Cool.
And then on top of it, like running presses and stuff, like I can do all of that. So a lot of times I am the person making up the holes, which wouldn't scale if we were much bigger. But right now it works well. And like I could do everything. And other shops don't really work like that. But I learned in high school, and then I'm like an art major. So the art side of it, if anything, I really undervalue art. Because to me, like if there's an art problem, like I'm not going to pay somebody $100 to fix my art problem. Because to me, it's like, oh yeah, this is a 30-minute problem. Whereas I know other people who don't know Adobe and stuff, they'll start feeling like they're paying a fortune to fix art problems. And to me, I just really undervalue it because I feel like it's easy.
Yeah,
so
I understand.
Yeah.
So you mean undervalue it like price-wise for shipping it out? Like it would have to be a horrendous issue, but you haven't come across that because you know how to fix it anyway. So
yeah, well, not only that, but like there's other print shop owners that are a little bit more, they came into the industry basically fresh, and they thought they would buy equipment and then they would manage jobs, and they were like, yeah, it's like deciding you're a roofer or deciding whatever. And I've heard of them having these nightmares where like their art department keeps holding them hostage, and there will be an artist who calls themselves a graphic designer, but really they just do separations, and they'll be getting paid $90,000. And the owner's like,
can I go to the States? 90K to do some artworking, which is mainly done by separation software and knowing some layers in Photoshop and stuff.
Yeah, but it's because these guys, if this one random person in their art department decides they have a bad day or tells them something like, oh, this will take me 3 hours, they have no ability to call them out. Like they can't say that's ridiculous, and they can't say I can replace you or whatever, because everyone they talk to about art, they don't have the knowledge set. So anyone can say anything they want to them, and they're just at the mercy of that person. So yeah, I mean, it really messes up some guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't realize because I understand that, because people do get into it thinking you can just buy your way in with an auto, and they get just sold that at the trade shows. So I wanted to talk to you about, like, you have the ability and the knowledge to do Plastel and Waterbased, and you sell both of those to your customers. Are you trying to transition over to Waterbased like a lot of people, or do you see the value in keeping both?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see much value in Waterbased. Like, we do it because people like it and it feels good. And I understand that whole sales thing. Like, if you're going down the boutique path, then it can be like, this is the premium, this is the luxurious feel, like all that. But to me, like, if Hyundai needs 2,000 shirts as a giveaway, why in the world am I having a conversation about discharge? There's just no point. Like 85-90% of all shirts are plastisol. So I understand the marketing pitch, but in reality, our best clients never care about it. And normally you just want like a smooth print. So plastisol that's smooth and printed nicely on an auto, but most clients are going to be very happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Because basically when you're getting to the corporate level, those clients literally want what they can see on their computer screens. They don't see that translation into the shirt. So yeah, as long as it passes I had a guy coming, I was doing one for Nando's. I don't know if you've got Nando's in America. It's like a chicken.
I don't think so.
It's a chicken retail. It's Chick-fil-A type thing, I reckon.
We do have chicken, so there you go.
Yeah, it'll be one of them. And then this Nando's representative came in, and he just came in, ticked that I was using Nando's Red. I wasn't using Nando's Red. I was using like bucket red. And he went, yep, that's our Pantone. I was like, okay. And then he just walked off, and then I just managed to like print for the next like week all these tote bags, which are just taking you like a morning. But still, it doesn't matter.
That's the thing. Like maybe for you, I don't know are you in London or where are you?
I'm a good hour out of London.
Okay.
So no, not really. I don't have any of that type of thing.
I don't know what your industry's like, but like there might be somebody with a lot of autos that you could just, because in my opinion, there's just so much more opportunity in landing as many clients as possible versus physically doing the labor. And like servicing as many clients as possible is just a better path than being on press.
Yeah. I think with this, what has happened to me is that I'm not trying to take on all those customers. I'm actually almost giving them away to my peers, because I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm not taking that on because I'm doing a different thing. I'm not trying to be a commercial print shop that services lots of customers. So I should hire someone in here to do pricing and then just get all that money.
Yes.
So
instead of recommending someone, you should just contract those orders. And I mean, you might only keep 10 or 15%, but those clients keep coming back to you. You'll have a larger like total base. If for some reason you ever sell or close this down, you could middleman those jobs remotely. But yeah, I mean, even if you have a very small margin because it is getting farmed out or whatever, as long as you know you're giving them a good end product, I don't think most people would care whether or not it's done in your building. They just need a good end product and to not be screwed over.
Do you get that though, when they ring you up and they're like, I want to keep this local? I want to come to you because it's local. And then do you feel bad about farming those ones out? Or does that not really happen to you?
Farm. I almost never farm except for polybagging and folding, things like that I don't have the machine. So I guess I kind of preach what I would do just because I do have the autos. So like I have to do thousands and thousands of units before my schedule's full. But besides that, like you're not necessarily having the money leave the community if it's a guy who's 8 miles away. That's true. He's still paying his staff. You're still like paying your staff and you're still paying your rent. Now, if you like sent it overseas and you were secretly selling them, you know, whatever cheap countries printing, then that's dishonest. But I don't think the fact that somebody handles your 800-piece order so that you can handle some more orders in-house is in any way dishonest, as long as the final quality is what they're expecting.
That's a really good point. Yeah. This is something I ask everyone, but like, what is your popular opinion about the screen print industry? So like something that you hear all the time and you just hate and riles you up.
Unpopular? My unpopular opinion that annoys me, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, there's random comments that I hear that I just kind of think aren't true. So maybe just a trend in general that I think is annoying is that a lot of the big brands, because they're going on view counts, are really obsessed with people making content for the most beginner thing you could possibly manage. So some of the biggest creators in the space, what they're doing is teaching you how to like run a manual for the first time ever, or make money in your bedroom on a heat press. And then they're the ones who like go to trade shows, and then at a trade show, someone humongous, like we'll just say brand X, so we don't have to name anyone. Some huge brand will be like, live, this guy. And then that guy goes and he stands in front of a bunch of print shop owners that are way beyond any of these skill levels. And then he tells them to like hustle and grind.
Yeah.
And these print shop owners are like, we've been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And then now there's like a good looking 25-year-old telling us to hustle on a heat press. You know, like just that whole thing is just weird to me. And the way that the brands buy in, because they're like, you know, oh, there's 110,000 views on this how to make a t-shirt video. But that video is for a whole bunch of people that don't really buy from print shops and also aren't print shops. So it's just weird in me that in the entire industry that like we really overvalue this content that is like the lowest level introductory, like how to. And it's not that that content is bad. It's just that I don't see how it gives you any value if you're actually in the industry. It only really makes sense if you're like trying to make $1,000 and you're in your 20s and you're like, oh, I want to make an extra $1,000 in my bedroom. That's the only way it really makes sense. There
is a huge hustle culture though, isn't it? That word is bloody annoying. Yeah, because it's the thumbnails, isn't it? It's like how I made £1,000 in a day or something like that. And you're like rolling your eyes because you're like, not that £1,000 isn't a good amount of money for somebody to bring in for themselves. Brilliant. Well done. But it's this kind of flash in the pan business. Like you could just get into this, make money. It's like a quick fix type of situation.
I think the whole industry really sells on like cheap, quick fixes. And a lot of the equipment manufacturers are kind of guilty of it. Like I guess I'm trying to not name everyone's names.
Don't get in trouble.
I went to a very large DTG manufacturer's private event. And in their private event, I was being told, like, you know, buy this literally $400,000 machine and all of these amazing opportunities are going to come your way. And I was like, okay, do you guys like have existing clients that are asking for production or anything? And it was like, no, we're just going to tell you it. And then you'll go like actualize it. And it's like, well, I don't have any demand right now for high volume DTG. No one's telling me that they want to do 1,000 DTG prints. And we have the solution with screen printing, and a nice screen printing machine is 80, 90 grand. So why, like, it's just weird that the way they market is, you know, if you buy this from us, you're just going to like succeed because it's exciting and new. Like there's this one embroidery machine now that prints on the thread. Have you seen that?
Color reel.
Yeah, color reel. And like when I've talked to them, it's the same thing. It's like, you know, this is groundbreaking. Everybody's going to want to buy this from you. And then you see the shops that are running it, and the shops that are running it have like 36 heads that are completely normal, and they have one color reel. And I'm like, well, they didn't change their whole shop over. Clearly, almost all their business isn't color reel. But yet the pitch is always like, if you just drop 100K, everybody's going to be so blown away by the fact that you bought a machine. So yeah, it's really dangerous to like buy equipment and then just assume people will care.
Yeah. Gee, I don't know if this is a similar type of thing, but when I was printing mainly for customers, nobody ever asked me for like sim process, like maybe once in a blue moon. But then when you go around the trade shows, they're all showing like this absolutely mind-blowing image that no one's ever asked for ever. Now they're even like making it on Mid-Journey and then putting it on the shirt and then saying, this is what your customers could ask for. And you're like, no one's ever asked me for that. They want their logo on their left chest. They want big, bold graphics. Maybe they're a band and they want a nice soft feel shirt, but they're not asking for that. Is that kind of like on a very... Yeah, I do know what you mean. They're saying build it and they'll come, but you're like, we still have to do the marketing. We still have to get that customer, which is the hardest bit.
Yeah, and if you're building it and and getting the customer, like one of our contract accounts is Fresh Prints, if you've heard of them.
No,
So
sorry. I'll write
they're
them down.
mostly in the sorority fraternity
Oh,
space.
yeah.
And so they kill it in the States. Like we'll get orders from like Baylor University and from UCLA and all these like monster schools, because they have a giant sales team that does nothing but talk to sororities and fraternities all day long. And then every single one of their orders gets farmed out to a print shop.
Yeah.
And so like they're just amazing at sales and marketing, and they don't print anything.
Yeah.
And so like when I see print shops who are like, the printer is very, very proud of their own manual screen printing skills, it's like,
wait for me.
great.
Wait, I am proud of my screen. Don't for me.
Yeah. But I mean, it's good that you're a good screen printer.
But it's not business.
A good screen printer really doesn't make that much money. Like a good screen printer, what does that position max out at if you were hired by someone else? Like maybe $25 an hour is like the tippy top.
Yeah.
So and then on top of it, as we get more and more into the digital space, you know, you used to be able to be a really good paper printer, and now everyone is just doing mass production digital printing on paper. So there's an element of like the skills just becoming less and less valuable over time.
That's really interesting. Are you talking about, you're not talking about artwork there, you're talking about graphic images and stuff. You're not talking about
I mean, you used to be the local shop that made flyers, and you would use like an AB Dick 360 plate press that was like ka-chunk, and you would make your plates the best in town, and you would have the nicest colors, and you would use really nice paper cardstock. And now the entire world runs on digital prints. I mean, there's even art prints, art posters and art prints. So few are actually lithographs or screen printed. You can go buy a $150 art poster, and it might just be a digital print on heavy paper.
Yeah, cliche one.
So it really just doesn't. It just doesn't long term matter. I think like in the long term, there's going to be less and less people screen printing, especially on the manual side.
But with art, you might not know about this sector, but you might not have experience with it. But do you see people in society moving away from valuing digital stuff and actually going, that is more valuable to me because it's been screen printed and I can see the craft in it? With artwork, I can, for sure.
But I also think that people do woodcuts, and then you can sell a woodcut print. It doesn't mean that the industry is not going to leave woodcuts. Like I will buy screen printed posters on purpose, and I'll get them framed, and I think they're cool. And it's very much the art side of it, though. Like as opposed to if the local restaurant finds out that they're going to be able to do their t-shirts either for $27 the right way or for $15 the wrong way, and the wrong way actually might have better detail. It's like I don't know what to tell you. Like it's just not going to scale. So if you go 100% like the art route, then at that point you might as well start making just really cool projects and retail things that are one-off, or they're limited edition of 50 and they're unbelievably expensive. And then you really have to like lean into the art 100%. But I think just being a normal manual screen printer and then telling people that it's better, it's a hard sell, because in a lot of ways it's not.
It is. What you just said is actually what we are doing. So we're doing limited edition. I've got a retail shop separate to the studio. So we do limited edition, like 30, 50 units. Yeah. And the artwork is the main emphasis. And that it's locally printed is one of the selling points, environmental, blah, 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 blah. And then, so we're manually printing it, but it's like a fraction of our weekly time, because it's only like, maybe 100, like, small little batches that go straight into the shop, and then you're getting the retail price on them. So, but then I earn money in different ways. But it is true. So just maybe if you are a manual print shop who wants to stay manual, you better get some special skills that can't be digitally printed or taken away from you. So Would you
and
lean into special effects, or what would you do in that case?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do some, doing puffs and glitters and metallics and all that would help. And then besides that, I think starting to accept weird projects no one wants to do at all. So like unbelievably large prints or printing on, maybe consider looking at like poster printing, because people will really, really love framing posters. So like some of those old vacuum screen printing presses that are for paper. Yeah, they're actually like, nobody really values the machine anymore. So one of those, like, you could be like the only person for 50 miles that actually is offering it. And then that way you're like super niche. So the people that do want it, you're basically the only option, period. There was this place that was doing what's his name? Shepard Fairey's stuff. And they were basically known as Shepard Fairey's, like the guy who did Obey.
Oh, okay.
Remember?
Yeah.
Obey and all those posters, the Obama
stuff.
poster and stuff.
Yeah.
He was doing his stuff in LA, and they would do screen printed posters, and they were booked literally like 6 months out. And it was very cool because they were 1,000% dedicated to the art side. And an artist would come in and they wouldn't just say they wanted 800 posters. They would come in and they would book 2-3 days straight. And they would be in the shop and they would be mixing inks, and the inks would be approved and calculated and documented. And people were making content of the posters being made. And then they would like they would do counts, so like no extra posters could get created, so everything would get documented so that you could say that it was one of 800 or whatever. And then they would like shut down, so like they would book 3 days with an artist and that was it. Their week was over. And like everything was done perfect to the spec of the artist, and that was it. And like at that point, in no way are they a commercial printer. They are like a private artist solution for only one specific kind of client. Because if Pepsi had called them and said, hey, we need 10,000 posters, they probably would have just completely rejected it, or they would have charged so much that Pepsi would have laughed at them. So it's cool to go down those paths, but I feel like you can't ride the line. You have to go like super committed to the most extreme version of it, or you need to like focus on maximizing, like efficiency.
I think you're right.
Doing both will make you inefficient and probably expensive.
We've got a really good British one called Make Ready, and you should look at their account, because they are working with like, they're taking it back to an art form, like down to the precision and detail that they put into their formulas and their paper and everything is really mind-blowing. You should look them up. Say if shirt agency, like, do you know, like the triangle, which is quick, cheap, and high quality, which two are shirt agency saying you are predominantly, if you can just do two of them?
I don't know. I mean, we're pretty good at kind of doing most of them slightly. So like, I wouldn't say we're overly quick. We're not like unbelievably slow, but we're probably kind of like value and quality. I think we're more worried about the final quality being consistent and good than almost anything. And then we're not overly pricey. So yeah, probably like value and quality, and then speed. We'll do a rush job, but we have to charge more for it and stuff. So we're not doing some of the crazy fast turns that other shops are.
Do you have any advice for people who say their jobs are really fluctuating throughout the year? Is that something that all shops feel, or is it you should be consistent with your like marketing, for example, even when you're doing well? Like, do you see fluctuations and seasons through the types of clients that you work with, for example?
Yeah, totally. I think it happens to everyone. Like, even really huge shops know that they're going to be down. A lot of the bigger shops will use temp workers and also layoffs as a way to like manage it. So if they're using temp workers, they can flux up, you know, in like summer and early fall, and then they can just let people go and not feel guilty about it. If you're like riding the line with 2 or 3 staff members and you just have a horrible month because it's January or something, there's a good chance you just have to have enough saved up and be prepared to just lose money in January, because it's that, or you get rid of them and all of a sudden you don't have staff in March. So I think it's pretty normal. It would be great if we could all land a bunch of orders in like January, February. But if you watch like the way, like just watch your own feed for advertising. And as you see these deals pop up of like 100 shirts, $399, it's because other people in the exact same industry need orders. Like you never see that deal when it's busy. So as you see local shops like advertising, it just means that they're in the same boat as you.
Do you do those deals where you go like 100 for 399 or anything like that? Do you see the value?
I'd rather just give people days off. Because like if I mean, considering the cost of the blank and then how much you're going to pay your team hourly, like at that point you would have like what, a $60 profit or something. It's like just go home, just like let's just work 3 days this week and not 5, and that's it. Like, why?
Let's just have a barbecue and just not sweat it, because you're just going to get hot and sweaty for no reason, especially where you are. I mean,
it just doesn't make sense to do those kind of super low deals. And there's people who, especially for me, I'm in Southern California, so like our overhead and our building and everything, it's a like serious amount of money. And then there's guys in like Ohio where their minimum wage is low. They bought a steel building years ago that's paid off, so no rent and low payroll, and electricity is almost nothing, and maybe they run off like a propane tank that they refill once a month. Like some of those guys, like they're just going to have crazy affordable pricing. It's just that's just what it is. And then your only real advantage is that you're in a location versus the fact that they're far away. That's kind of your only advantage, because price wise they can always be cheap.
I have one more like question. It's about that concept that you had. I don't know if you still run it or what the idea was, but it was like rent a manual in your studio. And that's another thing that just like gives me mega anxiety for like random people to come and do that. But can you explain that idea?
Well, I think the answer is I don't care about my press. So if I had a single press and I was trying to do stuff, that would be awful. But we never touch our manuals. So I have 4 manuals.
You have 4?
Of them are for, 2 are for live printing, and then 2 were initially got because of classes, when we did classes. So I already am used to humans being on the press because of classes. And then on top of it, with the renting the press thing, it's like you can come in, but you're not getting assisted. And so you're expected to have some level of knowing what you want to do. Because if we had to assist them, we'd literally charge more than if we just ran the job ourselves. Because I don't know if you've heard that mechanic thing where it's like $60 an hour for me to do it and $120 an hour for you to stand behind me and ask questions. So like, I mean, if they want to come in and stand in the corner and rent a press because they already know how to knock out 50 shirts, like if they're like an artsy type of person, then that's fine. Especially like if you live in an apartment, you probably don't want to own a press. And so that was what it was for, was that kind of person where maybe they already work at another shop or whatever, and they just want to like knock out a job for their own band. Then that's what it was for, as opposed to like giving people lessons about how to print. And I think we've had like very few people actually do it, because when we warn them that we're not like teaching you how to print, they lose interest. It's more just like a way for me to have like some kid I know who's perfectly reliable just like wander off in the corner and do whatever he wanted to do. Just to be that. But so when you train your people who are your press operators, do you bring them over to the manual, teach them on that, and then say, right, these are the... No. There's no point. Knowing how to print on a manual, if you're going to run an auto, it just doesn't matter at all. Because
Mm.
like we take a screen off our seat, we have the CTS, so
Yeah.
it gets clicked into the corners of the CTS.
Mhm.
So then we take the screen, click it into the tri-lock, because we have a big tri-lock platen. So now you're an eighth of an inch out of registration on every screen. You're already to that point.
Mhm.
And then you walk around and we have the micro adjustments. And on our auto, the micro adjustments are geared. So they're more sensitive than just like a screw adjustment.
Right.
You
Okay, so
go
they're
around.
clicking.
They're not
Mm.
clicking, but the gearing makes them more like unbelievably tiny adjustments. Like you can
Okay.
twist like this
Yeah.
and you've only gone like a millimeter.
Cool.
So like
Yeah.
it's made so that you can twist a bunch and barely move.
Mm.
And since the tri-lock got you so close to begin with, you can get your reg going and do a test print, which you're just pressing the start and stop button and get approved. So like, what's the point of me talking to them about pressure and squeegee angle and, oh, don't let your wrist go like this because they'll get sore. Like there's just none of it will actually carry over. And a lot of times when you hire people, you kind of don't want an existing screen printer, because if they're great, then awesome. But if they're great, they're also going to want to get paid accordingly. So they have to really deliver. But if they're just like someone who did a bad job in another shop and they came from a shop that was disorganized and they have bad habits, you're probably better off training someone with a good attitude than you are hiring someone with bad habits.
I do hear that a lot. Yeah.
It,
So when they're looking at the print though, how are you training them to know which of the variables it is that made that error, for example, like if something flags up? Whereas if it's you printing it, it's much more easy to diagnose, like, oh, okay, yeah, I did ease off on the pressure too much there. Like,
a lot of things you
error?
set things up to begin with, right?
Mm.
So like you can, on a manual, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, you're holding it weird. On an auto though, like our squeegee angle almost never changes. So it's just kind of always in the same angle. Our pressure is an adjustable air valve. So it's pretty much always set to the exact same pressure. If you have all your reg dialed in, then you shouldn't have an issue with the print looking bad. Our art guy not only makes the separations, but they make separations in order. So it'll say underbase, screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, screen 5. So you're not making those kind of decisions you would make on a manual where you're like, oh, it looks different if I do yellow before blue. Like that kind of decision making isn't happening. And then on top of it, like a printer isn't burning the screens. He isn't doing the file separations. He isn't catching at the end of the dryer. Like his job is learning how to register a job, get a sample, and loading. And then someone else is unloading. Someone else is catching at the end of the dryer. Like when they're all separated processes, there's not really that many decisions to make in any one job. Like our guys who make screens don't know how to print, and our guys who clean screens don't know how to make a screen.
Yeah,
like,
that's
all
really interesting.
Individual tasks.
Because I have heard loads of other studios say we cross-train everyone, but maybe that's so they can fill in for each other if one of them's sick. But you're saying you're the guy who fills in because you can do all the jobs, so that you don't need to cross-train. You could just
Also, I don't think like cross-training, I think there's a difference between telling somebody, hey, here's this thing, push these buttons and just do this for the next half hour. That to me isn't training. Like if I put a stack of coded screens in front of a guy and I have them click them onto the CTS, press print, and then set them on the exposure unit, to me, that's not training them. That's just like moving them for 40 minutes to do a very specific task. And I think separating specific tasks is more important than trying to let everyone be great at everything. Like I don't need my printer to have any idea how to separate art. And I don't need my art guy to have any idea how to do Waterbased or discharge. It just doesn't matter. So like, I think that's something about small shops where the small shops, their first hire is always like, okay, I need you to learn everything I do. But really what the first hire should probably be is like a person who does nothing but clean screens and maybe like burn them. So every single morning you walk into like 20 clean screens that are all burned with all of your jobs, and they're taped up and sitting in a corner. And that's it. That's their only job. Like they work like 20 hours a week, maybe. And that's like the only thing they do. And then if you are going to be on press, all you do is load your very clean screens and go straight into the job. But trying to teach that person, like, okay, person who isn't going to make that much an hour, I'm going to now teach you how to print, teach you how to read job packs, teach you how to do separations. And then I'm going to be frustrated when you can't do any random step right. That's just going to drive you crazy.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from all of this, Cole, is like, identify yourself as somebody who's going to be niche and like really specialized. And then that is the ability to stay small, or get people in all the roles who just know their very specific role. And that's the way to grow and actually make money and turnover on a substantial scale that's actually worth it as a screenwriter. Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. And it, like, instead of being obsessed with giving people full time, like, I'd rather have 3 people with 20 hours a week than one person doing 40 or 50 hours a week and running around with their head cut off. So you could still have roles, and your total payroll is like maybe one extra person's worth of payroll. But they're just, here's nothing but the screen person. Here's nothing but the person that's like your virtual assistant who handles sales and incoming inbound leads because maybe you don't like doing it. Like, and like making tasks very tiny means that you can tell them like, you have to do this and do this well, and you can actually hold them to it. But having them like answer phones, then they run around and go back and try to burn a screen, then they go and they try to set up a 1 color because you're behind and you're doing a 3 color, like it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like I've probably gone at you. Seem like a crazy busy guy, but I think I've asked you. I feel like I've asked you a lot of stuff and you've got a lot of value to give. So yeah, so can people still come if they are in your area? Can they come for those workshops? Are you not running them anymore, or?
Oh yeah, so it was all through Ryonet, and then Ryonet Education got blown up during COVID. And then it kind of re-emerged as Made Lab, if you've heard of Made Lab.
Yes, yeah.
So once Made Lab was their thing, basically the plan for Ryonet and that whole team was like, okay, if you want to do it, fly to Fort Worth. So we're actually doing a private class with this one brand that's sending all of their staff. And so we'll see how that private class goes. It should be good. It's like 20-something people all coming for a private class. But at the moment, I don't have like a public class. I am going to be at the impressions trade shows. Cool. So if anyone's going to be at like Fort Worth or Long Beach or whatever, me and Gavin we have like a scheduled talk, and then we'll probably be floating around anyway.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I don't know. Awesome. People can always bug me. You can rent a press and then come bug me.
Yeah, and just like, even though you're not supposed to, just ask you questions on the slide when you're at the coffee machine or something. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.